Good morning, Miss Everly. We are here to talk to you about different questions that we have about either COVID, about the new bond that passed, and about just different things in general that students have been asking us. I know we've been in school now for less than a week, but I know there are a lot of questions that students and staff are wanting to ask.
Great. I'm happy to be here with you.
So the first question is just generally about masks. Can you just repeat the mask policy?
Sure. So we have a mask guidance. It's like a school rule that has been established in our school district that all students and staff will be masked at school activities that are indoor. Masks are not required outside. And part of that is our buses are also included. And the transportation piece, the public transportation piece, is not just a district rule, that's a federal guideline.
And just to clarify, when you say we all have to wear masks, everybody in the district, not just Monroe High School, every school in the district is required to wear masks.
That is correct. All buildings, that includes our Fenmore maintenance and custodial operations building and the administration building as well.
And beyond masks, I know that there are still a lot of people not comfortable coming back, especially with the different variants that are coming out. Has there been modifications made for those people?
That's a great question, and it's one that we've been getting more frequently in the last few weeks. So the virtual option remains open. We have several hundreds of students and their families who have, they just are not comfortable yet coming back to in-person learning, and so that virtual option is there for them. Our virtual school was in place prior to COVID, but certainly during COVID, as we move along, it's been of a great service to families who have that preference.
So the only option for students who don't want to come in person is Monroe Virtual, which is the same Monroe Virtual that we had in place before COVID.
That's correct, Sam.
Okay, great. And then moving on to quarantining, it wasn't necessarily an issue last year, it was just more of a thing last year. I know it was rumored that the people who are vaccinated do not have to quarantine this year. Is that correct?
Yeah, there actually just earlier today there was some additional special guidance released on the subject of quarantining, because it's one that you hear about for districts and schools who have been open, longer than us. They are already in the process of quarantining some students and staff. So there are special guidelines for quarantining that are released, and we will be following them. Quarantining does work differently than it did last year, so that's really important distinction. And vaccinated people under the guidelines are treated differently when it comes to quarantining than unvaccinated. And it's also important to note that when it comes to students in a school, masked students are different than unmasked students when it comes to quarantining. So, and that was, a really big consideration when we chose to make our district a masked district, was that we really feel like it will help us to cut down on the quarantining of students.
And how will you tell if vaccinated people are not quarantining and unvaccinated people are quarantining? How do you know the difference? Is it just an honor system?
It is an honor system, and we've had really good luck with that, actually. It is. There are some state records that would show if someone is vaccinated or not, but we would always secure permission before having to get those. But overall, we've been very, very pleased with the self-reporting of students and staff, letting us know if they're vaccinated or unvaccinated.
So they do check, even though you do run on the honor system, do they check the state records every time?
Yeah, we have to have permission to do that.
So you have permission from their parents or guardian to check their records.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, when it comes to the state system. Mm-hmm.
And then moving on.
And that's a system, Sam, where all of the immunizations are housed, so it's not just a COVID system.
Yeah.
So we've heard of your vaccines and your immunizations for like measles and mumps and chicken pox. So all of those are warehoused in that same place.
And actually, it's a good thing that you brought that up, because I know that some vaccines are required to go to school. Do you see the COVID vaccine becoming a required vaccination to come to school eventually?
That's a big question. Everyone's wondering that. So everyone has that same question. Like, what's the next step as we move along with this in terms of vaccinations? So time will tell on that one. The medical professionals are really debating that.
And what people do you work with? What medical professionals do you guys work with
Yeah.
to decide all that?
Well, we're really fortunate. We have a medical team that's housed in the district, and our district RN leads that team. She's a registered nurse and has just a wealth of information and has been instrumental in guiding us. And then we have a strong connection with the Monroe County Health Department, and certainly the director there and all of the staff at the health department. They are on call for us 24/7. And then here, you've probably noticed right here at Monroe High, we have a ProMedica partnership. We have a ProMedica clinic that is opening up right in our high school. And so they also serve as, an advisory resource for us.
Can you talk a little bit? I have not heard of that ProMedica thing, by the way. But can you just talk?
I was hoping to slide that in during this interview.
No,
Yeah.
I'm so glad about that.
Yeah.
Can you just talk a little bit more about that? Like, how big is it? The
Yeah.
project?
So we're so excited about this partnership because it had been planned prior to COVID, and then of course when no one was able to be in school that March, when the state, the state shut down all of the schools,
Right.
we really had to wait until the students were back. So we're very pleased with the progress of the partnership. It's a clinic that's opened up right down on the first floor here of Monroe High School. And they're going to, of course, with parent permission, everything has to be, consent has to be given. But students, if they're not feeling well, if they have questions about COVID or any other sort of health matter, they'll be able to seek out some medical professionals right here in our building.
That's really cool, actually. Is that, I don't know how I want to phrase this question. Is there healthcare like associated with that? Like, does insurance get involved, or is it all like covered for students?
No, there could be, with consent of the parent, like there could be if a student needed a strep test for strep throat, or we've just talked about immunizations, things like that. There'll be set opportunities. A lot of our students, we have a large number involved in athletics. Well, to be involved in athletics, you have to have a physical before your season starts. So they'll be our partners with that too. So students who may have had trouble coordinating an appointment or getting a ride to the doctor,
Right.
They'll be able to have some of those resources right here inside of Monroe High School.
And just to again clarify the last question that I asked, is it free for students, or does it go off of their parents' health care?
They will do both. It depends on the service. So some of the services that they'll provide will be just because they're here in the building. And others that involve a test or a little more in-depth medical support would be billed through insurance.
Okay, all right. And as we're talking about sports and physicals and everything like that, we recently started up our football season, and I know a lot of people are back in the bleachers again. And I know athletes don't have to wear masks, and people in the stands don't have to wear masks because we're outside. Right. But as we go back to those bleachers, everybody is jam-packed tight, and especially the student section. What is there more of like is there kind of a system in place, right, to to say like how many people should be jam-packed together before you say I have to wear a mask outside.
Right. So we're really counting on recommendations of the CDC, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and then our local health department. And currently, there's not a recommendation or a guideline that speaks to outdoor capacity. Once, not too long ago, there was, and we did follow those to the T. So if there would ever be a guideline that would come out, we would study that immediately. But as of right now, actually we're encouraging as much outdoor activity as possible. When I was walking up to Monroe High this morning, there was a class in the courtyard doing their work in the courtyard, and we love to see that because it definitely is being recommended as one of the safest places to be when it comes to COVID spread.
Of course, so it's just based off of more of what the health center says rather than what's actually going on, just at our area. It's more of a general thing, right?
Well, it's both. It's both. If we had if we noticed that there was a really big problem that was centered right here at Monroe High School, we would definitely adjust and take action. We wouldn't wait for someone to tell us.
Of course, yeah.
But if everything seemed to be in line with what those agencies were saying, then we would, stay at that spot where we're at.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Sure,
that.
sure.
And I know inside of the building where masks on, shields up.
Yep.
Is that also a recommendation of the health center, like the shields? And I know the masks are. We
Yeah,
already talked about that.
the masks
shields.
are. There is some debate around like barriers and partitions. You see them at the grocery store and at different food venues. So right now, I think as we re-enter for the very first time, we are, in a stance of caution with that, and so we're continuing the use of some of those things. And as we learn more and see what happens now that we're all back together, we'll adjust accordingly.
And I know as I've been back in school myself, even I've noticed like reminders and stuff to keep your mask on, and usually they keep them up. It's not a problem there. But what about people who refuse?
Yeah, so it is, mask wearing is a school rule. So just like other school rules, like when you think about cell phones or, rules that teachers make in the classrooms or, walking in the hallway, it's a school rule tied to safety. Yeah. So we would certainly work, like we do with all the other rules in our schools, we work with the students, usually things work out when teachers and principals and students work together, explain themselves, then everybody is in a much better place. If there would be an instance where a student wouldn't comply after everything has been discussed, then we would process that as a school rule violation.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So just like any other like attendance cell phone policy, it's just the same. Okay.
It's a school rule.
All right. Just to backtrack a little bit, this is around the last question. I know it was long. Buses hold a lot of people in them at one time. And it's kind of like, two people at a time really close together. It's a compact area. How has safety on buses improved since COVID?
Yeah, that's a really good question because means of mass transportation is a topic all over our country, right? When we look at our country and many places around the world, like public transportation on buses in bigger cities is even more so than in Monroe. We have planes and trains and, you look at those areas and those vehicles with many people together moving, and sometimes for prolonged periods of time, right?
Yeah.
So it is a federal law that you have to wear a mask on those mass transportations, and school buses are included in that. It's clearly articulated by the CDC. So mask wearing is, first and foremost when it comes to the student perspective of mass transportation. But also I think it's really important to mention how ramped up our disinfecting is on the buses. So our bus drivers have built in a whole new routine. I mean, when you think about bus drivers, they are busy, busy, busy people. And but they have a routine now that has been inserted into their daily schedule for disinfecting and making sure that our buses are clean. And we're still encouraging students both throughout the day and on the bus to sanitize and wash their hands as much as possible, which all leads to a better environment.
Great, that's really great. And I have just a couple more questions, just in general. This is not related to any of, it's related to COVID mostly. So we've been in school again for a couple of days now. Have you seen, or just how's it been going, like with the COVID stuff? Like, is it working? Is everything that we're doing working?
I have to tell you how proud and pleased I am with what I see. So on our first day of school, I think that there were very few conversations about masks. Why 5-12? And what I mean by that is, so we have a group of students of all ages coming from all areas of our community who were just so joyful about coming back to school that the mask really seemed secondary. It's kind of like, putting on your shoes or putting on your jacket when it's cold. I mean, they just were very accepting and very thoughtful. I heard some grade school students talking about how, they want to keep their class safe. They want to keep their friends safe. Yeah. And so I think it's a reflection of our community that we built within our school district across all the schools, that we really are looking out for each other, and we just are so thankful to be here learning together.
Yeah. And with keeping everybody safe, I know, again, not everybody's vaccinated. Vaccinated people, though, can still carry it, and there are other variants. Is that a concern?
I think it's a concern for everyone. It certainly is something that we're watching out for, which is why our mask rules apply to everyone. Yeah. Whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, we're asking everyone to wear a mask. It's consistent that way. Our students can see us as adults, actually living out the expectation that we want them to also live out, and we just want to stay together. Yeah. We want to stay together and have a great school year.
So masks are kind of solving that problem of, even if you're vaccinated, because you still have to wear a mask, you're being protective of not only yourself but others as well.
Yeah, that is certainly what the health officials are advising us, and we're hopeful that as we move along in the school year, that our results show that. Yeah. We are getting some reports, and I appreciate everybody using the COVID hotline that we've established. It's, you can find the number on our website, but there's a lot of times people find out they have COVID at night or, on the weekend. Mm-hmm. And so we have a special call-in number that allows us to find out whoever's reported as a COVID positive person, and then we can do that contact tracing before people are together again the next school day. And so we really count on people doing that if they do contract COVID. And also, I know that we've had students, because they're so conscientious about it, they're talking about having to stay home if they have symptoms. And that's really important. That if people have symptoms, I know everybody's working hard and they don't want to miss school or they don't want to miss work. And I appreciate that very much. But under these circumstances, if you're symptomatic, you really need to stay home.
Okay. And that was the final question for COVID. I know it was a long section about COVID, but I'm going to hand the mic over to Gabby now. So she can talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Emmy.
Hello, how are you?
I'm just grand.
I'm going to go a bit lighter on you than Sam. We're talking about good things, about the bond.
Okay.
This is all about the bond.
Okay, that's exciting.
Yes, so a little bit of
That's
a lighter
more
topic.
exciting than COVID.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Makes people happier. So to clarify, my name's Emmy McLeod. I'm our social media chief editor. So we're gonna get into the bond. So last year was when the bond was passed, of course, and we can see all the construction that was done on the building from the bond, especially in B wing in the carpet. So what other changes specifically have happened that we might not see, or if you just want to go over the ones that have happened that we can see, just to list all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can actually send you even a detailed list. I'll highlight some of them.
Okay, awesome. Yeah.
Because it's important to note that the bond work is going to happen over the course of 5 years. So what you see this year and what we can talk about now, that will be multiplied 4 more times through the next 4 summers. And bond work, although some of it can happen during the school year, like most of it has to happen during the summer because of the machinery and the amount of construction that occurs. So let's start with the bigger projects this year. So the bigger projects were done at Monroe High School, Custer 2 Elementary, and Riverside Learning Center. So those 3 schools, let's take Monroe High, for instance. They were the HVAC, the heating and cooling system in the building was the original. So this building was built in 1975. So it was the original system. So they had to pull all of that out, disconnect it, and much of the work is, when you think about, just like at home, you have your furnace, and then you have the rooms in your house. So there's a way that hot air or the cool air has to get from that place to the rooms in your house. It's the same way in a school, except it has to be a lot bigger because schools are a lot bigger than houses. So the work that was done to really get the new HVAC system in, and then all of those, all the duct work to go to those new areas, that's a multi-year project. So this year, B wing, you see what happened in B wing, that's going to happen all over the school. So B wing has new heating, and D actually as well. B and D have new heating and cooling. The lighting is all new. The ceiling is new. They have new technology. It's going to be, rather than a pull-down screen like the ones we're accustomed to seeing, they're going to be bigger monitors, almost looking like a TV, mounted to the wall, so much clearer picture for students, great instructional capabilities for the teacher. Along with that, all of the infrastructure was put in because we'll be getting new safety systems here at Monroe High School and a new PA system. So eventually the bells are even going to sound a little bit different and everything. So Custer 2 and Riverside were very much the same type of work, but because they're smaller buildings, it was a smaller scope of work. So coming at Monroe High that happened at those other 2 buildings is a safe entrance. So the goal at the end of the bond work is to have every school have a safe entrance. And what we mean by that is when you walk into the front door of a school after being buzzed in by the people in the office, we would like a vestibule area so that the secretary can complete all the checks that need to be completed, give the visitor a proper badge so everyone knows that that person has been cleared by the office to be in our school. So Riverside and Custer 2 have that now. Monroe High will have that in the subsequent years of bond work.
So for the secretary thing, so like in our building, instead of entering the building and then going to the office, it would be something before you even get there. Okay.
Correct. That's, from our community, and thanks to the support of our community, we were able to communicate that there is a real need for that now. It's not okay for a visitor to be able to just think about that right now at Monroe High School. You can walk in and you're in the lunchroom. You're in the lunchroom. So now the visitor will get buzzed in, enter a vestibule. We'll be able to take really good care of our visitors, whether it be a community member or someone who's here to fix something in the building, be able to direct them, get them the proper visitor badge, and then be able to escort them to the appropriate area. So it's a very important feature. I think it helps not only safety, but it helps provide the proper greeting to people and also the proper service.
Yeah, I agree. Especially in the time that we live in, I think that that's something important. And then about the HVAC system, I was just wondering, like, what does the new system offer that the old one maybe didn't? Like, does it just work a little better? Maybe something about like air quality? Is there anything about any of that?
Well, a lot. There's a lot that it offers.
If you want to do like a brief, you don't need to go super into depth.
So one, we can digitally control the system off-site. So over the weekend, they were tweaking the system still, and we could see rooms go from a higher temperature to a lower temperature and not even be here. So we can watch everything. Two, if you've been at Monroe High School in the wintertime, you know that there's a big difference in the hallway than in the classroom. At least that's how it used to be. In B Wing, you're going to notice a huge difference with that now. So you won't have cold stairwells, you won't have cold hallways, everything's going to be regulated. Then the ventilation is also, there's a higher level of efficiency and a higher standard of ventilation in 2021 than there was in 1975. So the entire system has more ventilation, brings in more cool air, fresh air rather, and also runs in a more cost-effective way. So the electricity bill and the heating and cooling bills for school that has a newer system are lower. And those are just a few of the many benefits that people will notice.
Yeah. So the next thing is, again, about the building updates. So in our school, I'm not sure if you're aware, among the student body, it's kind of a joke that the A-wing bathroom floods like pretty badly. But going from that, our question was like, what was the thinking behind doing B-wing first, if there was one, or if you were just
Yeah, it actually, there was a lot of strategy with that, and it had to do with how the connectors ran from the main system to each of the wings. So we had to do them in a certain order because you had to have, I guess you could call it the brain in place first, and then the other wings will tap into that. But you mentioned bathrooms, and I didn't mention that when I was talking initially, but if you've been in a B-wing bathroom, you
They're
can
really nice.
see how beautiful, and what an update we've had there, and guaranteed no flooding.
all right.
Yeah, all new plumbing.
All right. No, so many kids. It's like I think it brings us together, truly, the bathrooms. All right. So also, we kind of talked about this already. You said that the elementary schools are also seeing new changes. So specifically, like, relating to the high school, what kind of changes similar to here are they having? Like, I know that when I went to Manor, we had like touch screen boards, and we never really had pull down ones. So are they going to have changes with like TVs, or are they going to keep those? Like, what's the changes specifically that you're seeing in elementary schools versus what we see with our own eyes here?
Sure. Well, everything will be in phases. So there will be some schools that get things before other schools. So in the elementary world, and a lot of you probably remember how warm an elementary school gets, because this is the only school, our high schools, Orchard and Monroe High, are the only schools that are completely cooled in the district. So each elementary school is seeing an update of a cooling system in their gym cafeteria. So that's huge. If you think back to those really warm days at the beginning and at the end of the year, and thought about going from your classroom that was warm to a cafeteria for lunch, and you have even more students in there sitting together, those areas are now cooled. So when you think about the theme for the bond was safe, warm, and functional. So, you know, those safety features we talked about, the HVAC systems really being, you know, more efficient and reliable, better heating in those buildings. And then the functional piece, when you think about the bathrooms, and you know they're getting updated bathrooms as well. So if you go in the Custer 2 or Riverside bathrooms, you're going to see some improvements similar to Monroe High. And then the PA systems and such. So it's a great gift to the schools from the community.
Well, yeah, it's awesome. Like everything from the bond definitely helps kids learn in a way that they'll be able to take in more information and not be distracted by anything else. So, we kind of already talked about the changes made this year, so I'm going to skip that one. We noticed that some of the changes that happened specifically in B Wing were that there were completely new walls. Specifically with the walls, what was the reasoning behind that? Was there anything with the old walls? What did it have to do with maybe installing the new system? What was the thinking behind that specifically?
So a lot of that.
If there was a new wall somewhere, it was driven by what was inside of that wall. And so if that was being replaced, in some cases, it was easier to go ahead and put in a new wall. The other thing with any kind of construction in a school, you have to have multiple inspections for safety. So multiple construction and fire inspections. And sometimes in older buildings, once you start to alter the construction of a building, the fire inspector may say, for instance, you know, I think you should have a thicker sheet of firewall on this wall to create a fire barrier. And so that prompts some of those replacements as well.
All right. And then from that, how has the feedback been in any of the schools, specifically ours, from maybe the teachers? Obviously, the students, I can even tell you, are very thrilled when they go into B Wing.
Yeah.
I am honored to have classes in B Wing.
Yeah.
So how has the feedback been from that, specifically from the staff, since us students don't really see that?
That's been super fun to get that feedback because I think one of the things people notice first is the new carpet and the new lighting. So we're getting a lot of feedback about the lighting and the carpet, and the teachers now have control on their lights where they can go dim. It's not just off and on. There's some settings, there's some motion detectors so that when people leave a room, if people are out of a room, the lights will turn off. And then we won't use that electricity. So we're hearing a lot about those things. The bathrooms are another huge, like an ooh and ah about all of the bathroom work. And then I've heard, especially at the high school, people say, wow, you can really notice after you leave B Wing and then like go into A Wing or C Wing, the big difference.
Yeah, it seems a lot newer and more like modern, for sure, I would say.
Yeah, and the paint, I think people really like the paint colors.
Yeah, that too. It's like a gray kind of thing. A better color, I think.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've had the chance to go in Upper D yet, or the Media Center, but that, it's just beautiful. They put some red accents that really pick up the red in the carpet, and it just looks so sharp.
I'll peek my head in when I walk by.
Please do. Yep, please do.
And then I think it's a really good thing too. I just want to reiterate that with, like you said, the lights turning off when you leave the room, I think that's also a very eco-friendly move that I definitely appreciate, and I think that other people will too.
Yep. And you're going to see some similar moves with drinking fountains and water filling stations, and hopefully that will help us to conserve and also use less plastic.
Yeah, which is always a great thing.
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna move on.
All right. Hi.
Hello.
All right, I'm Gabby Anderson. I am a co-chief editor as well, in charge of the print aspect of Lotus Leaf. So I'm just going to ask you some general questions, some stuff that they talked about, but all right, I'll just get started. So obviously everywhere there's a ton of staffing issues, mostly due to COVID. you look around town, you see everywhere short-staffed. I know that here it seems like we're short maybe on bus drivers, lunch workers, even teachers. Is this worse since the pandemic?
Yeah, we are noticing similar to what other employers in the community are noticing, that we do have some open positions. Some of the staffing shortages that were identified in the spring, because we're always trying to work ahead and think ahead, we've been very fortunate to make great progress in those. So I can't say it, but let's take bus drivers, for instance. There's a shortage of bus drivers throughout our country.
Yes.
And we quickly in the spring enlisted some supportive partners from METS along with our transportation office and worked together. METS is a contracted bus driving agency, and so they helped us to advertise for our openings. We had several job fairs over this summer, and we do have bus drivers for every route in Monroe Public Schools now, and we have a couple of substitutes bus drivers as well. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything is solved, but it is, at least in a very solid place to begin the school year. And I think that you're seeing the same thing in other areas, all the way up to and including teachers. We do have a few positions that we're still trying to fill, that we've had to make some accommodations for, but not nearly the number of positions that some of our other districts in the state have.
So you mentioned obviously positions needing to be filled. How does a district our size work to accommodate some of those shortages? How are we working each other?
Yeah, well, we utilize our resources is the best answer to that. So we're very fortunate that, and you'll see this in this building at Monroe High School, and in almost several of the elementaries as well. We have retirees who are fortunate, like you might look and say, I thought they retired. Well, they did, but they're coming back to help us.
Yeah.
And sometimes those commitments can be short-term or long-term. We also have other programs. They are school improvement coaches, our restorative practice coaches, and even some other roles in the district where, for a short term while we're working through a situation, that one of those staff members, as a team, we come together and we make sure that our students have what they need. So I think it's a team effort and using your resources.
Yeah, of course. So moving forward, obviously since COVID, we did online school for a very long time. A lot of things have changed. We do a lot of things online here. So, Chromebooks, school accounts, a lot of that stuff. Is there anything being done to help with the efficiency of having everything online, in regards to technology, since we're using so much more of it now?
Yeah. I think there's been great advancements in connectivity in our schools. So last year, we were able to increase our access points, which allow devices to get online quicker. We also have developed different portals for parents to report issues. So many times students, they'll discover their technology issue at home while doing their homework. And so we have reporting systems that allow students or parents, depending on the age group we're talking about, to report those. And our technology department has really, they're amazing. They are amazing in the way that they turn around devices when there's anything from a broken key to a connectivity problem. The other thing with technology that we need to mention, because students will notice this, is they'll notice some additional security features. Because when you have so much more happening online, like you said, we definitely want to make sure that can happen securely and in a safe environment. So students will notice that there might be additional security messages that they get when they're online.
Yeah, I was gonna say we've definitely all noticed a lot of changes to technology, but it's good to know that all that's being done, especially makes us feel better.
Good.
All right, so moving forward, this is a big one. Monroe is obviously known for our CTE department, the extensive amount of clubs we have. You know, we offer a lot at Monroe. So how can we secure the integrity of our reputation without the resources and staff to keep that going? Like, obviously, it's a little short staff, so how can we, continue to offer all of that during COVID especially too?
So we have not decreased any of the programs at all. So like all of our CTE programs are moving. In fact, I just talked with the Monroe News, sent them some words on how excited we are to see we have a new scissor lift that's getting installed in our automotive lab. We have, and if you haven't seen it, down in the health science rooms, we have an animage table where you can actually like do surgery on a human, and not a real human, a digital human, human. And so like when you look at those, you were just talking about your new room. And so those are advancements that are happening during COVID. And I think that's one thing to really emphasize here, Gabby, is that it's so important that when, there are times like we've all been through with COVID, that we don't stop growing, personally, we don't stop growing as friend groups and as classrooms, and we don't stop growing as a school district. So those advancements are up and going, and as far as the, you mentioned the staffing shortages, none of that has been great enough to halt any of those advancements.
Okay, so we've noticed, like, yes, our clubs, like you said, all those new advancements we've gotten for our CTE department, stuff like that. There have been less electives, like in the core departments. Is that's not due to, having a little less staff, or?
No, and I'd want to talk to Mr. bring Mr. Polizzi beside me for the rest of that conversation, because he and his team have the master schedule. Like they dream about the master schedule. They do that, but that is not. There have not been any electives reduced. Although I do know that student interest drives the schedule here at Monroe High. So if there is not enough interest in a particular course, it may have to be decided that course doesn't run, and something else where there is interest does run. So those are some of the tough decisions that the team has to make when building a master schedule at a high school.
Okay. So back, moving on the topic to CTE, how long will advancements in CTE take? Like if there's going to be more, or?
I think they'll be ongoing, always. I think they'll be ongoing because there's always an area of need. Mrs. Morelli and I just yesterday met with some business partners, and they were talking about a whole new area of CTE that they're interested in. And that's how new classes are born. When you think about the new drone class that was created a few years ago, like that's how they come about. We hear from our community partners and then get to work creating opportunities for students, and the students have been really super interested in some of these opportunities.
Okay, so I have one final question for you. After a full year online, and obviously you talked with Sam about the virtual program we have.
Sure.
There's a lot of options to be online. I just want to give you the chance to really put it out there why we want students to come to MPS or to come to Monroe High School in person.
Yeah. Well, one thing we learned, and it was no surprise really, we could have predicted it, that although the online opportunities provided by our staff were just beyond what we would have ever predicted. Their work was amazing when we had to be in that virtual environment. There is no substitute for in-person contact. And I think this interview, like with the four of us and our wonderful camera person here, like this interview is proof of that. Because we could do this in a Zoom. We could do it, but it doesn't feel the same, and we don't leave with the same. We don't leave with the same kind of meaning. So this is absolutely the first choice. And you, if you come to school and you feel the energy and experience the learning, you will know it for yourself. You will know it for yourself.
I 100% agree.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
I'm gonna hand it back
Yep,
to
you're
Sam.
welcome.
All right, thank you so much for being here with us today. I hope we didn't drill you too hard. I know it was a long interview.
I can't wait. I love this was so enjoyable. I hope I get to come back. I really look forward to working with the staff on the Lotus Leaf. I think when we think about all of the silver linings to the pandemic, look at your growth. You're an example of what we just talked about. So, and maybe if we hadn't had that opportunity, we'll call it an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So maybe if we hadn't had that, we wouldn't have had the advancements in the same way. So we're going to take where we've grown and then run with it from here.
Again, thank you for your time.
Yep.
And we would love to have you back anytime.
I would love that. I would love that. I'm happy to be your partner. So let me know what
Thank
you
you.
need.